Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film.
We're a little late to the party on this one. We just came back from Spider-Man Homecoming, and we saw it on Saturday of its opening weekend. We're so late, you guys.
But we're going to be super early with our Planet of the Apes one.
Well, yeah, but we didn't get an advanced screening for this one. We didn't go to, the very first Thursday night screening, which apparently it did really well. It topped the sales for Wonder Woman and Deadpool for Thursday release sales, and right now, midway through Saturday morning, it's sitting at about 50 million. Which is pretty good. That's a really good start to an opening weekend. That's not bad.
I don't know why people thought this movie wasn't going to be financially successful.
Because it's still a Sony movie and it's still a Pascal production. I know technically, but Marvel stepped in and, it's a DC property now and it's Marvel Studios and it is. But I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of sitting there just oh god, I gave this money when the Sony logo came up and then the Columbia Pictures came up and then even at the end when I saw the Pascal Productions, I was just I gave money to that, ew!
So for those of you who are not familiar with Amy Pascal is the producer behind the Ghostbusters. She also has kind of driven the Sony company to the ground.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just go on. Here's a little quiz for you. Go on to boxofficemojo.com. Look at the Sony releases by year going backwards.
It's Tom Rothman and Amy Pascal. Those have been the two people.
It's not just Amy Pascal. She doesn't own the company. She's not some big evil boogeyman, but she has a lot more power than she should. She's kind of she really is Sony's Zack Snyder, where I'm just ugh. And why are you still here?
And part of the thing is, she is trying to push a progressive angle, but she doesn't really care about it enough to do it well. I mean, she's pushed practically all of the Paul Feig films, including this Ghostbusters movie. And
no, because Paul Feig didn't even sign up for Ghostbusters, and then he tried to back out of it when the project became Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters was not his baby at all, and it shows everywhere. Some people were dude, does he fucking hate Ghostbusters? Yeah, he actually hates this fucking movie.
Alright, so
anyway, cinematic politics aside, I was kind of excited to see Homecoming because Spider-Man was a bit of a hit or miss in Civil War for me. Some of the best moments in Civil War for me were Peter Parker and Tony Stark working together. And at first I really liked it, and then Peter Parker does this whole, do you guys know that really old movie? Empire Strikes Back? You remember the Snow Planet? Remember that? I was just
I get what they're trying to talk about because he's trying to trip Ant-Man and all this kind of stuff, but that is not nerdy enough.
Things. Okay, first of all, nobody talks about, do you know that really old movie Star Wars? Have you ever heard somebody talk like that?
I mean, to be fair, Star Wars is actually pretty old now. It makes me feel old.
But nobody goes up to somebody else and says, hey, have you ever heard of this really old movie? It's this sci-fi sort of silly movie. It's called Star Wars.
Yeah, only the biggest franchise outside of the Marvel movies.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's still ongoing. They're still putting out a movie every year. What is this bullshit of
What do you mean they're still putting out? That's been a new thing. That's not something Star Wars has done for a period of time.
It's been a few years now.
2. And this is our third one.
And then there's going to be a third one. But that's what I'm saying. It's not like Star Wars isn't an ongoing franchise at this moment.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten into the whole Star Wars politics. That's mainly because I'm trying to wait and gather a little bit more information and talk about that whole thing that's going on. But let's stick to Spider-Man for this one.
So after that, I was kind of just I don't really know what to think about this. I have a soft spot for Spider-Man. I still will stand up for what I like in the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. And I liked a lot of the comics, and I was just kind of okay, well, I don't know which one it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be the better stuff in Civil War where it's like, we're not going to deal with the origin story, but we're going to sort of hint at it. There was some stuff in Civil War where like he was talking like a real kid, where he was kind of getting defensive and secretive about the Uncle Ben thing, where, you know, Tony Stark was like, oh, so you're just trying to stand up for the little guy. And he's like, yeah, you know, that's what it is. It's just the little guy, whatever. I thought that was really good, strong writing. It appeases the fans. It works in the context of the film. Or was it going to be you guys know that old film Star Wars? Like, it could have gone in either direction.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of still went in either direction. I ended up feeling for Homecoming what I felt about Guardians of the Galaxy, both of them, where it's like, most of it was awesome. Some of it kind of sucked. But most of it was awesome. And to its credit, and we can get into this, but Spider-Man Homecoming is the exact opposite of everything I hate about Avengers as a franchise. Like, all the things about Avengers and all the solo movies and everything that I've seen that don't work for me, that I just don't like, that make me bored and just not a fan of it at all, were done correctly and well in Spider-Man. I'm just like, what? See, there, that. Good. Awesome.
Well, part of the strength of this movie is they really seem to understand the character of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. This is the first time that I can say that watching a Spider-Man movie, I was like, great, they have Peter Parker and Spider-Man. In the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, I actually thought Tobey Maguire was great as Peter Parker. I didn't like him as Spider-Man. Then, with the Andrew Garfield films, I kind of liked him as Peter Parker, kind of, but I really liked him as Spider-Man. He nailed Spider-Man, the character. Granted, the scripts of those movies were their shortcomings, but that wasn't Andrew Garfield's fault. That's the scriptwriter's fault. That's the producer's fault. And let's face it, producers for these movies have made some pretty bad decisions that, for a lot of these films, it's not really even the director's or the story writer's fault. I mean, a little bit, but the producers come in and they say, oh, well, we got to have Venom in this movie. We got to have
we have to have 7 villains in one movie.
Exactly. We got to do this Sinister Six movie. Well, guess what? We're not doing the Sinister Six. That's getting put into the back burner. We're going to wait until all this stuff comes. Yeah, pretty much indefinitely, which is good because, like, you know, if you don't have your ducks in a row, don't do it.
Yeah. For me, I fucking hate the Sam Raimi's movies. All 3 of them. I hate Tobey Maguire. All the time.
I disagree with you.
There are a couple things that are good. I like J.K. Simmons' character. I like Sandman a lot. Sandman is excellent. But so much of that stuff, it's silly. Spider-Man was one of the only comics I actually read when I was growing up and then watching the movies. The movies made me hate Spider-Man for a while. Like, for a while, I stopped reading the comics because I was just like, you know what? Fuck this. This is stupid. For real. It was that bad to me for a while.
The biggest problem that I have with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies is the audience, the crowds in those movies. They have like this really high-pitched, corny sound to them. Every single person, it's like, oh, look, it's Spider-Man. And then they're falling, and then it's like, whoa! And I'm watching it going like, this is worse than Saturday morning cartoons. And the early ones, too. Because I know they usually get better at around like 8 and 9 o'clock. But like when you're watching it at like 6 or 5 in the morning, that's when the really bad cartoons come in. And it's kind of like that. So...
No, I completely agree. The background characters all have like this really corny, cartoony, nobody talks like that quality. But I think that permeates throughout the entire franchise. You know, obviously there's Emo Peter and Dancing Peter and all this stuff. But I thought the Octo Professor dude was
Doc Octopus. That's what his name is.
I know that's what his name is. I'm taking a stab at him.
Okay.
Because
he's one of the better villains.
He's one of the cheesiest, most ridiculous things. I mean, it's hard to say that next to Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, but like...
I thought Willem Dafoe was good. I just thought the fucking outfit was god-awful.
The outfit was god-awful. Him Doing the whole Gollum impression thing was fucking awful. The fact that he has to save Mary Jane and Aunt May like 11 times over the course of 3 movies is pretty
And oftentimes
bad.
in very similar set pieces,
Yeah,
so it's not like...
it's all so stupid. I can't get into any of it. Like, for me, that was like a thing that put a stink on comic book movies for me because I missed The Mask and Steel and all that stuff. You know, I kind of missed Elektra and the bad Catwoman. But, like, you know, I saw the Tim Burton movies, I was like, cool! And then I saw the Sam Raimi movies, and I was like, never mind! Okay. But then with Amazing Spider-Man, the script sucked. No, the script sucked. Totally. Almost everything else really works, though. The acting all really works. The effects were stunningly good to me. Like, that was one of the first times I was really, like, stunned by what CGI could really accomplish. And it works really well. I like that they take a lot of, like, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are really cartoony in a corny way, but the Amazing Spider-Man movies try to be cartoony in a more artistic, interesting sort of a way. You know, I really like a lot of touches, like the fact that, you know, you have Electro, who's kind of, I don't quite know what his deal is, which I like, but it's almost like a, what's the word?
Schizophrenia?
Schizophrenic, yeah, it's sort of a schizophrenic thing. I really like how they had, like, a choir.
Schizophrenia with the remix!
But I like how the soundtrack is this choir of people repeating what's going through his mind, so it puts you in his mindset and sort of makes you think the way he thinks. I like that. I thought that was really an artistic, really interesting choice that I would have never thought of. I like the whole, you know, Spider-Man is just so desperate in a moment that his web turns into another tiny little hand. Like, I know it's a little silly, but I think it really works in that moment, and it adds a lot of emotional impact. And I thought that there was a lot of that stuff in those movies. And I like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. It was awesome to see really good dialogue, at least. As bad as the scripts are, him being a smart mouth worked really well. And I think that he did a really good job as Peter Parker, too. I think the problem was makeup needed to really downplay him. Because it's possible to downplay his looks. I saw Hacksaw Ridge. He looked like really weird and flat and doughy. You can do that. He doesn't have to be like this gorgeous pretty boy. That was just the wrong look. And I think that he was trying to overcome that obstacle of being too pretty. And that kind of sucked.
Right. And one of the things that, at least for a lot of people growing up liking Spider-Man, was there was a relatability to him. He's not this great superhero that, you know, outside of the costume, everybody admires him and all that kind of stuff. He's kind of a loser. One of the things that so many people like about it, and something that I like about the Spider-Man comics, is it sort of takes the idea of Clark Kent and pushes it a little bit more. He is a little bit more awkward. He is a little bit shyer. And it's not a front either. Because with Superman, it's obvious that, you know,
it's his alter ego.
Yeah.
His alter ego isn't Superman. His alter ego is Clark Kent. So he plays it up and is like this bumbling thing. Yeah.
But with Spider-Man, he is this bumbling character. And in the Spider-Man suit, he talks shit. That's what he does. And it's fun. I liked how it was in this movie. Granted, I like some of the small jabs that he makes in the Andrew Garfield films a little bit better. Just in terms of like Spider-Man sarcasm. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get that in the future. Hopefully we'll get a good script writer that can, you know, come up with some fun quips, because yeah, that's one of the things that everybody likes about Spider-Man. Be careful when you do that though, because there is a tendency, especially in the comics, to think that Spider-Man and Deadpool are a little too similar.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely, for sure. And what I really did like in this movie was they did work a lot of that relatability. And that's one of those things that I really miss in the Avengers a lot. What I really don't like about the Avengers, there are a few things. I sort of have like a criteria of what makes a comic book movie work and what doesn't make a comic book movie work, as like genre pieces. And one of the things I really don't like watching Avengers movies is there are no stakes at all. Everything feels weightless. Everything feels effortless. Maybe a side character that they don't really develop that well will die, or maybe a side character that they don't develop that well will have like some sort of, you know, angsty moment, maybe. But overall, especially when it comes to fighting, they're always on point. They're always doing 3 things at once. They're always doing exactly what they mean to be doing. And Civil War worked with that a little bit more with the whole Scarlet Witch thing, which I liked. You know, it was cool to see an Avenger actually make a mistake. Like a real mistake. Like, oh, I was trying to do this thing and I did this other thing by accident. And it fucked up. Shit. You know, that was kind of nice, but overall, you know, when I was watching the trailers and it was the Bucky and Captain America teaming up on Iron Man, and it was just them going through the moves, I was just like, I don't feel anything here because you guys are all too strong and you're too flawless and you're too overpowered. And the other thing I don't like is the villains always suck. You know, oh, they're alien clones. Now it's one alien thing.
Yeah, and a beam in the sky and all that kind of stuff.
It's the beam in the sky and
okay, can
whatever.
we, like, do away with the beam in the sky?
There was no beam in the sky for this one, though.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying we haven't done it for the past couple movies, and can we just, like, kind of do away with it for a while? Because nobody likes this shit. Yeah, nobody likes the beam in the sky.
It's true. What I liked in Homecoming was they really do work with Peter Parker's age to give him a lot of flaws that he is overcoming, and a lot of them are sort of like the cliche ones, but they execute a lot of them really well. So one of the things I really liked was the whole thing on the monument. They made that shit really scary, and it was cool to see Spider-Man say like, fuck, this is scary, I'm this high, I don't know, like, this is terrifying me right now, and also I don't have a parachute, I could literally die right now. That is not a thing that happens in Avengers movies.
Also, I like the fact that they made it clear in this movie that Spider-Man just can't swing off of anything, because that's one of the sins
that was such a good moment.
Yes, it raised stakes with Spider-Man, because now we know that Spider-Man can't just fly in the sky. He can't.
Well, he can now. He can be a spider glider.
Well, yeah.
I was excited to see that moment where he did the spider glide. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that was really awesome. But, like, he can't just, like, you know, swing off of, clouds? Which sometimes he does in the comics and stuff, where you're just like...
he's in New York. It's easy to swing from building to building to building, but it was good to see a movie
Sometimes in comics, there literally is nothing that he's swinging on. He's just swinging because he's not in the city. When he's in the city, it makes sense, but, like... Or, like, when he's above the buildings, when he's above every building, what's he swinging off of? Planes?
Right. But I do like the fact that they took him out of the city for a lot of this. They really were testing a lot of his limitations as a character, you know. A lot of it was him trying to learn how to do stuff. A lot of it was him being scared of actually accomplishing things. He gets hurt in this movie. He doesn't stay hurt or anything. But that was actually a pretty powerful moment. Well, it lasted. It was just so cool to see, like, a character who actually had flaws. Like, he can't juggle everything at once. He's not immediately amazing at everything he tries to do. He fails, and he gets up, and he tries again, and he fails again. And it sucks. And I like the fact that there are a lot of adults in this movie who talk him down. That's something you have to deal with as a kid, and they really make it kind of humiliating. Like, it's almost embarrassing when Tony Stark has to come in and save him all the time, and just be like, no, shut up, adults are talking now, because he's right. And there are actual consequences for everything. I like that balancing his real life and his superhero life, and he did just kind of want to be like, fuck real life, I don't need that, and then he lost everything, and he was like, oh, shit, fuck. Now I have to go back to real life, but I don't want to. Like, it's all stuff we've kind of seen before, but they really got into the emotional weight of a lot of it.
Yeah, one of the things that I kind of appreciated about the movie was there was definitely a parallel with some of the John Hughes films that came out in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Granted,
A little
I
too much.
liked... Yeah, I know. I liked the scene where they were kind of playing off the Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
I
That was
know
pretty
you don't
cute.
like that movie,
No,
but
that was
like,
a good moment in the movie, though, for sure.
yeah.
I definitely agree with that. And I loved a lot of the smaller humorous moments work really well, like where he tries to do the web thingy and it doesn't work and he just has to run around and, you know, he accidentally knocks down this kid's tree house and shit like that. You know, a lot of that stuff works really well. And then some of it really, really doesn't work very well. Like, a lot of stuff at the beginning didn't work very well for me, I think. So not everything worked. One of the Avengers staples in this movie is that a lot of the weaker stuff is towards the front. So, like, the whole video montage thing of, like, a film by Peter Parker, and it's just, like, these random clips from his iPhone that, like, kind of never should have happened and didn't add to his character and didn't add to the plot and didn't really come into play. So that didn't really work. And a lot of stuff towards the beginning is kind of like that, where it just doesn't really work. Like, the whole Death Star Lego subplot thing is... As a Lego fanatic myself, a lot of that is just kind of like, dude, are you serious? Really? Really? Okay.
Well, also it's kind of like this really interesting thing where it's like, Disney, do you really have to brag that much that you have Marvel and Star Wars?
Apparently they do. Look, we got Spider-Man and Star Wars, and they're in the same movie. Oh my god, let's just rub it in more. There's gonna be like a Star Wars well, and the Lego thing too, but it's just like, you're just gonna... Are you seriously just gonna do a plug for Star Wars in every Spider-Man movie? Is that gonna be your new thing? Really? Really now? And there were kind of a lot of stupid things like that. Like, I didn't really get this whole moving upstate subplot, and then Pepper Potts is back out of nowhere, and I was like, fuck, we just got rid of Gwyneth Paltrow. Why is she back? What the fuck?
Contract. And it probably cost so much money to get her into just that small part.
But they did like this whole thing in the last movie of like, oh, Tony Stark is so upset because Pepper Potts left him and now he's got this empty hole and all this stuff. And then just all of a sudden out of nowhere, oh, they're going to be engaged now.
I hope they mess with that a little bit more because Tony Stark doesn't need to be happy.
Right. And a lot of the stuff at the beginning, it just kind of was like going between being hilarious and cringeworthy with a lot of the dialogue and little subplots, but as it went along, it got a lot smoother and stronger and just really funny and emotional.
I'm curious what you mean by like the cringeworthy parts, because I don't know, I didn't really...
Some of the stuff like the bully. I actually really liked the bully by the end, but at the beginning with Flash, it was kind of funny that it's like Spider-Man and Flash, but like that whole thing at the beginning where Flash gets the answer wrong and Peter gets the answer right and he turns around and he's like, "You're dead." Just like, really? Is that how, even at a nerdy high school, that's how people talk? Like, he didn't even talk about the fucking decathlon thing, whatever, that happened later.
Yeah, well, Flash Thompson is a character that's in the Spider-Man comics.
I know, but like, it got better with like some of the penis Parker kind of stuff. Honestly, that shit was good. That shit was really good. Because that's
totally something that's a kid would say in high school.
But exactly, that was something that felt more like what a kid would say in high school. And a lot of the stuff at the beginning sort of teeters between how a kid might actually act versus how a Hollywood studio thinks a kid would act.
Right, yeah, because so oftentimes they screw up kids, and like surprisingly, like this movie doesn't really do that. Partly because they're using
a kid. Tom Holland's pretty young.
Well, they're using young actors who I think are like 18, 19, but they look like kids. They don't look like 30-year-olds going to high school, which is like the biggest problem of...
That's true. Like, even in Amazing Spider-Man, it's so weird to me to think that they're supposed to be in high school because it looks like they're about to graduate from college.
Right. Even though, like, Tobey Maguire looks like he's gonna graduate for, like, his master's or his PhD.
Yeah. They've been getting the Spider-Man's younger and younger. And the Aunt May's younger and younger.
Oh, well, Civil War made plenty of comments on how ridiculously hot she...
So did Homecoming. Yeah, like, she's the hot chick in the movie. At least, like, the hot chick in the movie was age appropriate. At least Liz wasn't the hot chick in the movie or something. That would be weird.
But I also think it's cool that Tony Stark, I mean, granted, he's dating Pepper Potts and all that kind of stuff, but it was kind of cool to see, like, an older woman, like, actually be acknowledged as attractive in a major film. Because, like, yeah, older women can be attractive. And,
well, and
like,
also someone who doesn't look like a supermodel.
Right. I mean, to be fair, I've had the hots for Marissa Tomei since, like, the early 90s with My Cousin Vinny. And it never stopped. Yeah, so it's really cool to see her in the movie. I'm sorry, she's attractive.
Well, I know, but there's not anything else to her in the movie. She's not really, like... the comfort, like, she's not the support for Peter. She's not, like, the absent parent who's too busy holding down a job or two jobs or being a nurse or whatever the fuck. Like, I don't even know what the fuck she does in this movie. Most of the movie is about men acknowledging that she's hot and her getting free stuff because she's hot, and that's who she is. Okay.
I get what you're saying. I think part of it is the fact that if they did that, they'd be retreading on certain story points that we both were kind of glad that they didn't do.
I agree. I was really relieved for once to have a movie that acknowledges that the audience knows this shit. But even this movie had a line about how he was bit by a radioactive spider and that's how he has his powers. Okay.
But he was explaining it to somebody who didn't know that, so it's fine.
It's not a big deal. I'm just saying, like, all I'm saying is that that's all she is. She's just the hot chick.
That's a fair point. Some of the other women in the film were a lot better than what I would expect from the Spider-Man movies, because outside of Gwen Stacy, who, like, say what you will about the Amazing Spider-Man movies, Gwen Stacy was actually a pretty good character.
She was a really good character. She was well-defined. She had her own personality besides being Peter Parker's girlfriend. She was never a single time a damsel in distress. That was not a thing that happened.
I mean,
that was
Mary
really nice.
Jane in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies is such a damsel in distress. I mean, like, 90% of the movie is, it's like, oh, Mary Jane's falling off a building. Let's go save her. Mary Jane's falling off a bridge. Mary Jane's falling off some... And it's just like, okay, can we get, like, something that doesn't involve Mary Jane falling out of a fucking building?
And it was nice
or the villain dropping her or something, you know? It's like, Jesus Christ. This is worse than early Superman shit where Lois Lane's falling all over the place.
And it was nice to have another movie that didn't do that. There was the threat of that being a possibility, which I think is all you really need. I'll kill you, I'll kill your family, I'll kill everyone you ever loved. You don't need to actually have Aunt May hanging out of a fucking building 4 times a movie.
Well, and I also like the fact that the love interest in the movie, clearly that wouldn't happen because Vulture is her father.
Which I really liked how they did that, because I knew it was going to be a thing of, like, he knows Vulture, and they're going to see each other outside of, you know, their thing and all this stuff.
And then they're going to fight, and she's going to cry.
Right. I kind of knew all that stuff was coming, but, like, the intense awkwardness of having it happen on prom night was just, that really made it work, because you took the two elements that were really overdone and cliche in that sort of story of, oh, it's the girlfriend's dad, and also you have to take the girlfriend to prom, and you meshed them together in, like, this really awkward, uncomfortable thing, and it worked really well.
Well, and like you were saying, yeah, that is cliche, but that is also a reality for some people. There is sometimes the talk that involves a father showing the boy the gun.
Yeah, no, that I really like that, though. I think that they took some of these more cliche things and made it a lot stronger.
Yeah, this movie is really well paced. Mm-hmm. This movie actually has a villain that I like, which is
another thing that Avengers sucks at overall. That is what makes bad comic book movies not work and makes good comic book movies work really well. If you can have villains who are actual characters... Because let's face it, the clone aliens were not characters. Ultron was not really a character. Doomsday is not a character. Ares is not a character. They're just cardboard cutouts that are so powerful that it kind of gives the superheroes something to do for a little bit. And that's boring.
Right. For every hero's motivation, you have to have villain's motivation. Like, if you can't at least understand where they're coming from and, as far as I'm concerned, sympathize with them at least a little bit, why do we even care?
With Vulture, that was both the positive and the negative for him. Michael Keaton did a really, really good job as Vulture. I liked him a lot. The design is fantastic. I love that he actually looks kind of menacing and scary, and they're like, he's like this weird fucking demon thing, and it's like, yeah, that's actually kind of what he looks like. It's creepy. I really liked, like, the whole first fight scene with him where everything's really disorienting. You know, where they're up in the sky and you just see the flashes and he's wrapped up in the parachute and you don't really know what's going on. That was short and really well utilized. That's a good use of, like, shaky cam, and it really upped the stakes of that scene.
I also like the fact that his jacket harkens to his original costume in the comics. Mm-hmm. So, and, you know, the whole Vulture thing, but it makes sense. That's also kind of similar to, like, what a person wearing, like, a flight jacket for, like, the Air Force back in the old days. So, like, yeah, it's a really good use of the design. I thought the way that they wrinkled his face.
And it adds to his character, too, because I really think that that's supposed to be part of his background, is that he was in the military, because they have a few characters where they point out, like, a lot of people who are, you know, who are veterans. I think that that was supposed to be one of the things in the movie. And I thought that it was nice to have, like, that little touch to get a little bit more sympathy and a little bit more development without having, like, some expositional, I was in the war sort of a thing.
And I like the relationship with the daughter. What was her name? Liz. I like the relationship with the daughter Liz because
it was actually pretty realistic.
It was realistic. Also, the fact that he didn't want to go after Peter Parker because he saved her life and everything like that. I like that because
that was really good. Yeah.
It shows me something that I've been complaining about with a lot of comic villains and all that kind of stuff, is a lot of people who are, you know, carrying a life of crime, and if they are real people and not just motivated by greed, there is this notion that there's an honor amongst thieves, and that was definitely a moment. And I liked that relationship, that, like, he wasn't going to cross that boundary because, well, we later find out that he directly just goes after him. But if he didn't, it's possible that he wouldn't have gone after him after that. Like, he did give him a way out. Clearly, he knew that that wasn't going to be the case, but you can at least see the argument that, oh, if Spider-Man just went to the, you know, if Peter Parker just went to the homecoming dance and, you know, nothing. You don't think so?
I don't think so, and here's why. There is so much really good character development that works into the way that the plot develops until a certain point where all of a sudden the story doesn't care anymore. And Vulture suffers from that really, really badly, where originally you sort of see where he's coming from. He's a blue-collar worker. He's just trying to do his job, but the government is coming in and they took our jobs. But it works really well, and he has a family to feed. He has a crew who has a family to feed, and it shows exactly what pushed him into his somewhat life of crime, and it's not really that bad, I would think. Like, you know, you watch Rick and Morty, where, you know, Rick's like, but you gave a killer a gun! That's the same thing as pulling the trigger! Well, it's also the same thing as doing nothing. You know, he's not, like, giving drugs to little kids or something. Whatever. So you can kind of, like, get his motivation, why he's doing what he's doing, and there's some respect to the fact that they've all made this work out of nothing. They took, like, this alien technology and infused it with our own technology to make these super weapons out of nothing. They're not, like, a government-run operation. They're not super geniuses. They're just normal people, which makes it a lot more impressive. And I like that kind of stuff. I like that he does care so much for his daughter, and that there is this thing where it's like, you saved my daughter, I can see you're a good kid, I don't really want to kill you, I don't really want to hurt you, but I'm going to do what I got to do to protect my family, sort of a thing. And that all works really well until the very next scene, it doesn't really matter. And that doesn't work at all for a couple reasons. He's pretty fucking ruthless about going after Peter Parker, and there is a thing with parents and children that doesn't work. I just cannot imagine a parent, an active parent like he is, looking at a kid literally younger than his daughter, who is someone she's close to, like, essentially another, like, mini his daughter, you know, from parents' perspective, and just being like, I'm gonna fucking kill you now, bye. I can't see that ever fucking working, especially in, like, a really ruthless way of, oh, I'm not gonna hit you, I'm just gonna collapse the entire building on top of you and crush you to death. Like, it wasn't even a hard thing for him, and it also doesn't work because he's not a killer. I liked this whole thing at the beginning where he accidentally killed someone in his crew. He didn't even mean to do that. It was literally just an accident. But after that point, he doesn't even give a shit about murdering people. What the fuck?
I kind of wish that was a more emotional moment for him. I think that...
I do too.
Michael Keaton has the chops to have done that moment, so I think that was just a director's choice that didn't work. Because so. I think that it should have come off as more shock than what it did. Where
he grabbed the wrong thing, and it was just like,
not
oh,
like,
shit.
Oops,
yeah.
Which is kind of like how the movie takes it. I get that you're trying to do a more villainous villain, which we haven't seen in a live-action Spider-Man movie ever.
Yeah.
Everybody has lost their mind in every Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
So, like, I will say it's nice to see that the chip didn't mess up. You know, the process didn't, like, transform him into anything.
Right.
Which, like, yes, I get that that's a lot of Spider-Man characters, but, like, we're kind of wanting to see something else, you know? And
see something else until you can prove that you can do it well.
Exactly. There are plenty of great Spider-Man villains who aren't crazy. I mean, like, not in the terms of, like, they lost their mind and, you know, they're villainous, but they don't want to be and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's interesting, but when you play that card so many times, people get sick and tired of it. That being said, there are some pretty cool Spider-Man villains that could come in the future. Like Kraven the Hunter and various other characters that could be interesting to show that don't have that crazy thing. Now, it would be cool to see Green Goblin come into this universe because I think they could possibly do him right this time.
But I like that they're waiting until later. You know, isn't his buddies, like, from college anyway?
I thought so in the comics.
Name. Yeah, in the comics. What's his name, though?
Harry Osborn?
Yeah, Harry Osborn.
Yeah, I think that they were friends in college.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I like that they're kind of saving that for later, for that story arc. I think that the tragedy of that storyline wouldn't work in a high school setting. In fact, in The Amazing Spider-Man, it doesn't work. So...
Yeah.
But that's kind of the downfall with this movie. Because like you said, for the most part, the pacing's really good. One of the things I don't like in Avengers is a lot of the set pieces are boring because there's no stakes, because half of the action is there and half of the action isn't there, and you can kind of tell when it is and when it isn't. And a lot of it is green screened with bad lighting and just some gimmicky stuff, and I get bored. It's like watching a Michael Bay movie for me. And in this movie, there were like 4 freaking set piece moments, and they were all pretty damn good. Even the one that we've seen before with the ferry boat, fucking New York and the ferry boat and the Statue of Liberty right in the middle was a little too much. But I kind of like how they lampooned that. Really well. Yeah, that entire setup actually worked really well. It was kind of an intricate mob thing, and then the FBI came in, and he had this really intelligent strategy of hitting the structural landmarks and pushing it together, and it almost really worked, and it was really cool to see him get that close. And that was actually a really good way to do that ferry scene. The National Monument scene was really good because there were big stakes in that, and they made that convincingly really scary. Well, and
one of the things that I like that at least the Russo brothers have kind of added into this Marvel universe, cinematic universe, is heroes thinking about how their powers can be used in interesting ways, to use their environment and other characters around them to essentially play off of each other so that it's not just doing the same move over and over again. I mean, like, in almost all the Spider-Man movies before, you have either Spider-Man uses his web to stick somebody, Spider-Man uses his web to swing, and Spider-Man uses his web to catch people. I mean, that's basically like the thing, what it is. And I like the fact that this movie is adding a little bit more. Yeah, there were like the spider punches or whatever those little balls are that the spider ball.
The web grenade.
Yeah. So
which I like.
Well, no, I mean like in the other films. Like,
oh yeah.
So like that was cool. Like seeing different powers, but also like how he's like using them, but in ways that it actually works for the story, not just. One of the things that makes me get annoyed by some nerd fans and all that stuff is they get really excited about characters doing certain things with their powers, characters fighting and all that kind of stuff. But like oftentimes it doesn't work in the context of the story. Yeah, I get it. You like it. It looks cool. But how does it move the story forward?
Right. And one of the reasons why I think a lot of the set pieces in this movie work really well is because there's sort of a rise and fall with the action. There's so many action scenes where you don't know if it's going to actually be like this big set piece or if it's going to be a failure. And he actually gets hurt. He can get a concussion. He can get blacked out. He can almost die. That's actually a thing that can happen. So, like, there's one time where he's following these guys in the car and he survives, and there's, like, this whole thing where he's on their taillight and then he gets picked up and dropped and he almost dies. You know, or there's the scene where again with the car, and he falls in and he jumps up and he gets a concussion and he's knocked out, and then all of a sudden like he's locked up somewhere and he doesn't know what the fuck to do. You kind of like, it gives you enough anticipation where you don't know where it's gonna go. But again, it all builds up really well until the climactic moment, and really in the climax I feel like everything falls apart. You have the Vulture completely abandon everything that made his character work for the sake of being ruthless and greedy and not giving a shit about murdering a kid. You have Spider-Man have this really fantastic moment, and Tom Holland's really doing a lot of acting. He's bleeding from his head. He's completely crushed. He can't move. He's crying. Like, it's kind of hard to watch for a minute. He's screaming for help because he can't move. That's really hard to take. And it was great to see a character actually get really defeated like that for a minute. Until all of a sudden he wasn't. You know, he looks into the puddle and like he's got the vision and the voiceover telling him what to do. It was way too much. And then all of a sudden, like, no, he's fine. Spider-Man, okay, now I'm fine. Nothing that's happened to me is going to influence this next fight. It's not like I'm working through having a concussion or contusions or anything like that. I'm just suddenly fine. And then we have like this whole action sequence that's based off of this stupid storyline that we don't even know why it's happening, of like moving day on an invisible jet, where I was kind of arguing because we saw the film theory where he was pointing out that Spider-Man can't do a lot of this shit because of G-forces. I was like, but he has this stupid Tony Stark suit that probably has a lot of compression in it to help him do a lot of this stuff. They're in the fucking sky on an airplane and he's in like his stupid hoodie. And that also, and he's totally fine. Also, wasn't that like something that his underling said at like one point? Like, if you want to go really high, don't you want this in your suit? And then he was like, no, screw that. And I thought that was going to be like a Chekhov's gun. I thought but it just like didn't even come into play in like this really stupid, no stakes, ridiculous, cartoony climax. Like, it really sucks that everything that made the movie really work until that point falls apart on all fronts at the most like pinnacle moment. Why?
I like when he's flying away and Spider-Man is trying to save him. Like
that part was really good. That's where it gets back.
The ultimate climax of this. Yeah, there's some flaws here and there in between, but the ultimate climax actually really works.
I agree. The ultimate climax really works, and balls on a Spider-Man movie to invoke 9/11 imagery. Like, I was stunned. It's only there for like a few seconds, but Spider-Man has become like so entangled with 9/11, not just because they had to cut that whole thing from the first Spider-Man movie with the Twin Towers, but then how Spider-Man became like almost comedically patriotic, like almost more so than Captain America for a while. You know, that's become like so ingrained in the identity of Spider-Man now.
Yeah,
that it was really fascinating to see that actually be utilized in the movie, and then to sort of diffuse it. I really like that from like an American citizen sort of standpoint of like having this image and we can all kind of deal with it. You know what I mean? And then from there, I think things pick up again where, you know, Vulture's trying to take off and he's kind of wrapped up in himself and he kind of has that Icarus thing where he doesn't see that he's being self-destructive and Peter doesn't fucking kill him or hurt him and he saves his life. And I think that part worked, but everything to get there just fell apart really bad at the worst time.
One of the things that I like that it parallels with is at the very beginning how like Spider-Man is like going through the city like trying to like save people and trying to stop crime and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But he's getting the wrong people in many cases and like failing and like not understanding the situation. And I really like that because if somebody's moving that fast, would they actually know if this person's committing a crime or not? Like, I love the scene where the guy's trying to open his car.
Yeah.
And he has this whole confrontation. And it's just somebody trying to get into their own car that they lock their keys in.
Yeah, because it's a thing that I think everybody's like had that experience. And when you do that, you're like, God, I really hope somebody doesn't think I'm breaking into this car. Like, it's my car. But I also really like that thematically it works in the movie of you don't really know who the criminal is or what the intent is by looking at the situation. You don't have like an actual understanding. And that's like pretty philosophically deep for a fucking Avengers movie where it's just good guy's good, bad guy's bad, rah, rah, rah.
And that final piece, like once Vulture is in the jail and he doesn't reveal Peter Parker's identity, that establishes that, yes, we're actually possibly going to see this character in another movie. And that would be interesting to see how that relationship that was built up in this movie continues on.
Yeah, and it's really nice to have the storyline of like, don't burn your enemies even when they try to kill you, because he can come back around to being your ally. I would really love to see later on at some point Spider-Man and Vulture working together. It probably won't happen because I think part of it's not going to happen because of the girlfriend subplot. Because I kind of like the whole he never got the girl. Like, he never even went on a date with this girl. Like, he just kind of fucked that all up really bad. And I kind of like that.
Yeah, but going off of that whole thing, I think that one of the cool things is, you know, not killing the villain off. Mm-hmm. You don't see that a lot in Spider-Man movies because, like, that almost always seemed to happen. Like, oh, the villain has to die. It's one of the reasons why I don't like the original Batman movies, because they, you know, each movie, you know, sets up a villain and the villain's completely gone by the end of the movie. And then comic book movies have kind of carried this trend for a long time. You see one villain in one movie. That's the only movie you see them in as far as the timeline goes. And then they're just gone. I mean, yeah, you get Loki and some stuff with the Avengers. But like outside of that, like, yeah, usually villains are one and done. I would have loved to see Heath Ledger be in another Batman movie. Everybody did. And it would have happened if he didn't pass. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. So it's nice to see the possibility of that happening with Michael Keaton. I also thought it was cool that he just played Birdman a couple years ago. And
that was a spoof off of Batman. So now we've got Vulture, who's kind of like Birdman, who was already kind of like Batman.
Yeah.
I like that he's reprising himself as like a superhero actor instead of the dad in shitty girly comedies.
Yeah.
Like, it was really depressing seeing him fall to that state for, like, a good chunk of his career.
Jack Frost.
Jack Frost was one. The
Multiplicity.
Postgraduate was one. What's the other one that he was the dad in? There was some other...
Oh, I don't know. Like...
He's done it quite a few times, so it was nice to see him come back. But the other thing, too, that I really liked about not killing Vulture, and actually this was sort of a theme in Homecoming, was this is still carrying on sort of the apologetic tone of Civil War, where you have all these superheroes who for ages have been like, fight. Oh shit. You know what? This is actually real world consequences. This is a lot of property damage. This is a lot of damage to infrastructure. This is hurting a lot of people. This is killing people. And that's completely on us. And it was cool to utilize a child who has this innocent no-kill policy and also have, like, Tony Stark as the mentor character trying to, you know, oh, you didn't kill someone yet, but it would be really fucked up if you did. I like that the movie is still playing around with this idea of superheroes are supposed to do no harm and how difficult that is, and that's like one of the challenges.
I did think it was also interesting because, like, in the movie, the suit keeps on giving him that option, and he keeps on, like, trying to, like, bypass it.
Yeah, that was a really, really smart thematic decision, I think.
Also, I thought it was really awesome that a major blockbuster movie makes an entire point to criticize the military-industrial complex, which is something that Iron Man has kind of done in his movies, but this movie takes it a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I was actually really surprised to see how much actual real-world politics was in Spider-Man, because when DC tries to introduce real-world politics, they take it really literally, but also with, like, very little understanding, just sort of this surface-level idea of, you know, oh, we're gonna bring in this element, and it's gonna be just like this, but we don't really know what we're talking about with politics, so when we introduce it in the story, we don't really know what we're talking about. And then with Avengers, a lot of it has been really sort of light, up-in-the-air stuff, but so much of comics history is about current events, what's happening in the world, politics, you know?
Yeah, and especially if you want to escape that, like, I would say that, like, superhero films shouldn't necessarily be for you, because especially if you read the comics, like you were saying, there's politics throughout the comics.
Why do you think so many characters are in the newspaper industry?
Yeah.
And that's something that, going forward, I can't wait to see really updated. We're in such a stalemate with the news media outlets right now, where we're in a position where the common man has, like, so much knowledge about what's going on that we know that a lot of these news outlets are just completely full of shit a lot of the time. And right now they're, like, really struggling to stay relevant both in print and on TV. You know, we're at a stage where people on YouTube, regardless of how credible or incredible they are getting so many more views than the top news stations on television are on TV or online. It would be really interesting to see some updates to, like, this journalistic non-integrity that we're suffering through right now, and see that come back with superheroes. I think that's still kind of a ways away. I don't even know if that's something that would be touched, but I think that would be a great update from the original source material.
Yeah, it would. I'm really interested to see what that would be, especially since, you know, it's like, do you try to create this idealistic thing, you know, a la The West Wing, you know, try to kind of create something that doesn't exist in our society, or do you use current politics to kind of criticize some of the stuff that's going on and possibly inspire some people to be photojournalists? Because I guarantee you can talk to a handful of photojournalists and ask them what inspired them to be a photojournalist, and some of them might actually say Spider-Man.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that this movie did a really good job of trying to tap into some of the really inescapable current politics that most people are dealing with right now, but not in a very in-your-face, extremely literal sort of a sense, where if you want to go to the movie and just not deal with that, you still don't really have to deal with it, but it's there if that's something that does really affect you and you do want to see in these movies. You know, I think it hit that right sweet spot for that right now.
Yeah, I also gotta say that I like the fact that this movie was really diverse without ever addressing it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to fucking talk about, like, oh, well, you know, isn't it great to have... No, because, I mean, I went to a high school where I was the minority. I'm white, Hispanic, but I look white. I was the minority. It was my majority African-American, a couple Latinos, a couple Asian people. But it was really nice to see that at the school.
Well, yeah, and I do really appreciate that Marvel has been taking very strong steps to create very diverse casting. I mean, we still are suffering from this gender ratio, but I like the fact that they are trying to fix a lot of the casting. Like, it does suck that right now the main lineup is all white, but we're getting a Black Panther movie soon.
Yeah.
You know, and by the way, even already we have like 5 superheroes who are black. That's great. That's awesome. It would be better if they were even more prominent, but I'm always kind of surprised by how much they actually are in these movies doing important things. Most of where they're really not put in the limelight is when it comes to marketing and merchandise, which that's where I kind of think it sucks. But it's great to see that they're having a lot of people do stuff. Falcon does a lot of stuff. The only reason I don't know his name is because I didn't watch any of the Iron Man movies, but the War Machine is fucking awesome. And his storyline in Civil War was great. Nick Fury, obviously, is a fan favorite, and Black Panther is coming into play.
It was weird and a bit unfortunate that he was replaced, because originally it was Terrence Howard, and then they replaced him with Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
But yeah, Don Cheadle's been great as War Machine.
Yeah, and it does kind of suck that in this movie it is sort of the same thing of the superheroes are all white, but like it is nice that he goes to school and he's one of the only white people at the school.
I think that will change with the success of Black Panther. Because Black Panther is going to make a shit ton of money.
Oh, for sure, because it looks fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't seem like we need to do the progressive thing like Wonder Woman was. We need to push the female agenda. We're not going to focus on making Wonder Woman a good female character. She's female and that's all that matters, you know, sort of a thing. That's what Amy Pascal is the champ at. Black Panther legitimately just looks good. Yeah. And he's already, like, in Civil War, he was just a good character. And then in this movie, Ned was fucking awesome. Ned was fucking great. I loved everything he was in. I loved everything he said. It was awesome seeing him do, like, the web slinging thing. It was really awesome seeing him do the Oracle thing. And I thought it was cute that they made that actually realistically work by having him be in the school computer lab. So he was actually doing the being on one computer and being on the other one. But the movie still kind of showed that was kind of hard for him, which I liked. That made it a lot more endearing. It was really cool, too, because he had that moment of, like, man, I wish I was Spider-Man. Then he was like, nah, no, I don't. You know what? I'm going to be the guy in the computer chair. Like, it's cute that he had that sort of, like, initial jealousy working past it sort of a thing, too. And it's cute how he's like, can we tell everyone? Okay, no, we can't. I want to tell everyone, though. And
I also like the fact that
hat thing.
His weight wasn't, like, really brought up in the
Yeah, like, he wasn't just the funny fat guy. He was just Ned.
Exactly.
I mean, the only thing I don't like is, like, Ned's kind of a shitty name, but that's okay. It really doesn't matter. He was great. He was fucking awesome.
Right, but in so many other contexts, like, his weight would have been brought up, like, 1 billion fucking times. And it's like, okay, yeah, we get it. He's a little bit overweight. But he's still important to the plot, and, you know...
And it also didn't stop him from doing anything in the movie, which was really nice.
Exactly, because, like, you don't need to have everybody have one body type in superhero movies.
I completely agree, for sure. But I will say, Wonder Woman, if you are going to be that fucking scrawny, at least act like it's hard. Peter Parker still acts like it's hard.
I mean, hell,
you know,
Scarlet
Captain America
Witch
still acts like it's hard. Scarlet Witch, all she does is stand there and she still makes it look like it's hard. It makes it... Put up some fucking effort in, is what I'm saying. God damn it.
Yeah.
But you're right. I'm really glad to see that the casting is just getting better and better all the time. It's really nice to see. And I really like the fact that as much as I do enjoy looking at Emma Stone in thigh-high socks and all this stuff, it was
outside
nice
of La
to
La
see...
Land.
I meant as Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
In this movie, it was really awesome to see high school girls look like high school girls, not be fetishized. They're not wearing, like, hot schoolgirl uniforms. Like, at the end, the love interest is wearing sweater and jeans. Like, really unflattering ones, too.
Also, when she's wearing a swimsuit...
It's like a one piece. It's not like a,
yeah.
Oh, look at her hot body, like, look at her butt kind of a thing. It's just, these are two kids who like each other. Like, it was a very healthy perspective, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and oftentimes, at least for me, I'm a face person, so, like, when I see somebody pretty, I'm focused on their face.
And so was he.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's nice to see that be an attraction, especially at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, kids are perverted and all that kind of stuff too, but like, you know, like there's other parts of your sexuality that don't involve always looking at that part of the body.
And more importantly, Liz and MJ were both, neither one of them looked like models. Like, MJ is a singer. In real life, like, she's actually a celebrity, I get that. But neither of them, like, look like models. They don't look like Hollywood hot women. They look like kids in high school. You know, very cute ones. But I think that there was just, like, this really comfortable realism to the casting.
Yeah, I thought Zendaya was great as MJ.
Yeah, she was really great, and she's one of the only three females in the entire Marvel universe who has like a slightly different personality, which was really nice.
Yeah, I kind of like how they changed MJ because, yeah, I get it. Like, she was a fashion model. She was
the girl next door. She was the damsel in distress.
Yeah, she's all these conventions that are boring. And I like that
we don't really care about anymore. Like, out of all the things in the origin story to just completely fucking throw away, nobody likes Mary Jane. Fucking throw that shit away. Change her to Michelle, give her the same initials so it can be like this cute little thing, and keep literally nothing else. Not even the red hair. Like, just don't even fucking do it. Perfect.
I mean, they could do the red hair for something, like if it's pertinent.
Well, I'm not gonna care if they do the red hair. I'm not gonna be upset. But what I'm saying is, like, it was nice that she didn't have red hair the whole movie, so then you knew, like, oh, she's the real love interest.
Yeah.
She kind of reminded me a lot of Gaz from Invader Zim. Not in a gothy way, but just in her sense of humor.
Yeah. How she was in detention just to draw a picture of the guy.
And her doodles were cute, too. Like, I really liked that she was intelligent. She had, like, this very dry sense of humor. She was just kind of always there and kind of judgy, but also very honest about her own shortcomings. I liked her a lot. She was cool, and they gave her kind of a lot to do, too. You know, like, she won the decathlon, like, clearly she's really intelligent. And it was kind of interesting to see, like, Peter Parker's spot as, like, smartest kid in school or whatever kind of get taken away. And not have it be a big deal. It just sort of became a thing of, like, in the future, it's gonna be like, oh, you're even smarter than me. I think that's cute.
Well, smart in different ways. Like, right. You know, like, I don't really like this idea of this person being smarter than this person because I honestly think that everybody is kind of smart in their own ways. Granted, we have dumb people in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fucking Darwin Awards exist. Yeah, there are a lot of stupid people at politics. But, you know, sometimes it's nice to see that people can be smart in their own way. Like, she's smart with the education and all that kind of stuff. And Peter Parker's smart as, like, an engineer. Like, she
was also kind of socially smart. Like, I thought that the whole Washington Monument was built by slaves thing was actually... That was a nice way to not, like, be too over the top with something, but also kind of be like, yeah, we need to, like, actually address some of the shit going on. You know, I thought that was... Again, kind of like hitting that just right sweet spot. I'm
sure there's going to be some conservative think piece on that one fucking scene, but, like, who cares? Yeah.
Now, in the reverse, like, that's one of the things that kind of didn't work for Peter Parker for me, that I didn't really like. Like, I didn't like the retro stuff because it didn't make any sense. It's like, oh, you have, like, retro computer, you know, 80s. And he's like, well, I got out of a dumpster. And it's like, why? You know... All of the musical cues have been, like, 80s music, but only, like, the really uber popular ones that you know all the words to, not, like, anything that was actually any more, you know, underground than fucking Hey Ho, Let's Go. Obviously. But it's like, why? And then the Homecoming was 80s theme, but nobody dressed 80s anyway. But it's just like, why is there, like, all this 80s nostalgia stuff with a character who thinks that The Empire Strikes Back is just this really old movie?
Now, let's be fair, that was Civil War and not this movie. But
a lot of it carries over into this movie.
Right, right. That being said, the 80s obviously was a reference to John Hughes.
I know, but why?
There really isn't any rhyme or reason. And the whole, like, computer thing...
It kind of seemed like they were trying to cash in on that Guardians of the Galaxy thing, but the Guardians of the Galaxy thing commits really hard. Yeah, you can't just put like a layer of it on the top and expect that to have a similar effect.
Right. Also, I think it's weird that they would like have an 80s thing because like it seems like they would have more of a 90s thing because like
right
like
right
like
now we
we're
have
getting-
the 90s nostalgia.
Yeah, because this is showing my age, but when I was growing up, the big thing was the 80s nostalgia. The generation after me is 90s nostalgia, which makes sense because they lived through part of it.
Right. But I think, well, actually, Peter Parker didn't. He was born in 2002. I mean, like, ooh.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at is, like, a lot of stuff just didn't tonally work with his background, I guess. Like, some of the stuff where he's in school is okay. But a lot of stuff doesn't make sense. Like, I like the fact that they kind of bring the suit that he actually made in and out. But it also does kind of suck to me that Tony Stark is just making all of his suits for him and all of his gadgetry stuff. But it does suck that he didn't, like, make that himself. It kind of does. It's they're not very specific about what kind of a nerd he is. And that's what really gets to me. It's because there's all different branches of, like, nerddom. He's not a media nerd. He's not really, like, a costuming nerd. He's probably not really an engineering nerd. He might be a chemistry nerd based off of a lot of his t-shirts and the fact that, like, he's making his own webbing. That's, like, one of the only things that he keeps that he's still making is the webbing. And maybe he excels at chemistry, but it's kind of awkward to me that it's just more of this sort of broad brush nerdy thing.
Well, I think that they are relying on your knowledge of the character for a lot of it, which I get could be a sin of the movie, but I really like the scene where he's in chemistry class and he's working on one project, but in the drawer he's working on his webbing.
Yeah, I really like that, and that's kind of what made me think like maybe that's more of his jam. But then it doesn't work with the 80s thing at all in any particular way. It doesn't work with the retro thing in any way. And most of the reason why I really don't like it is because the updates are what is making his Spider-Man work and stand out better. And I wish that it was more of this sort of viewpoint of the youth of the next generation really making advancements rather than this nostalgia thing. He's 15. He's not old enough to have nostalgia.
Yeah, and
it's not
already
like
we have enough 80s nostalgia with Guardians of the Galaxy. We don't need any more.
70s, but also
it's 70s and 80s.
But also, like, if you're gonna do it, then don't be that weak sauce about it. When I was 15, I also loved 80s music, and I still do. But it wasn't just the one Ramones song that I happen to know. Like, it's just lame. The movie is a mixture of really strong choices and really good execution of cliches, and then really weak choices.
I would say
that
it's a little
gel with the better points. I think it's a little bit all over the place. Just like Guardians of the Galaxy, which I also really like. Guardians of the Galaxy does the same thing.
I would say as a full narrative, though, it works better than most of the movies because you have a clear villain in the film, which is something that almost all the Marvel movies are failing at.
Dude, Vulture is easily the best MCU villain, and he is outpacing Thanos, who is like, God, how many fucking movies is going to be him sitting in a chair, being evil and abusive to his daughters?
I'm hoping that maybe Thor Ragnarok.
That looks pretty good, and that's one.
No, but I'm hoping that he shows up in that and possibly like establishes his character a little bit more.
We'll see.
That would be interesting. Like, we just need to see Thanos as a character and not just like drop him in at some point, because yeah, we fucking seen him, but like many people are not reading the comic books because let's look at comic book sales these days.
That's true.
Yes, these movies sometimes make new fans, but it's not like people are driving to the comic book stores to get these comics.
Right. But with Thor Ragnarok, that's actually exactly what I'm trying to say with, like, that is 80s retro nostalgia, and it doesn't make any sense in the Thorverse, but looking at the trailers, they're committing to it and it looks fun. That's good enough for me.
I mean, it's drawing on a lot of parallels with, like, fucking Conan and shit like that, and I'm cool with that. I love Conan.
It's just, like,
Punch
Peter
a camel.
Parker, yes. Peter Parker is not a hipster. And there was too much Junoism in the movie to work for me. Down to the end credits, where I was just like...
I kind of think really Andrew serious? Garfield was a little hipstery with
He was a little hipstery, and that's what a lot of people, including me, don't really like about that.
Like,
but he was
Bing?
doing other stuff. Well, that was just a licensing thing, but I've heard people say that they hate the entire Amazing Spider-Man franchise based off of that one thing, and it's just like, oh my god, are you serious? But, that aside, it's just one of those things that just doesn't gel. It doesn't work with the stronger established choices.
Yeah, the 80s thing definitely didn't need to be in the movie, and if you're going to do it, like, at least commit to it, which the movie didn't really do. So yeah, it's definitely a sin.
The dumpster diving, why? And nowadays, if you go dumpster diving, you can get better stuff than, what, a Commodore 64?
Depends on where you are. I mean...
He's in New York. He's in New York City. You can probably find functional, iPads in the garbage somewhere.
That's a fair point.
I'm saying that without a reason, it's just kind of dumb. Like, why did you even bring it up and put it in the script and have it be an establishing thing in his room with no fucking reason and no real purpose and no strong idea behind it?
I don't know. There might be, like, older people that might have this stuff lying around.
I'm not saying you wouldn't find it. I'm just saying you would find better stuff. You wouldn't be reduced to this shit, is what I'm saying.
I think that's a wink and a nudge to some of the older audiences watching the movie, which, yeah, you could say
that
is a sin.
He doesn't relate to.
Well, exactly, but this is so that, like, the people who are, like, in their 40s can go, oh, I can relate to that.
It's not the point of his character or this movie, though.
Right, this movie is trying to relate to people that are in the ages of,
for God's sake,
13
it's
to
called
16.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's nothing like the Spider-Man Homecoming comic.
And also it's got almost nothing to do with Homecoming in general.
Yeah, it's
Homecoming
just like this
makes
one...
a grand experience. Like, he's at Homecoming for, I think, less than 2 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to this Homecoming thing. Nope.
Bye. Like, there's some banners and shit, because, like, that's what you see in any movie that's set in high school, but there's no point.
Oh, and by the way, the chick that I was going to go on the date on, yeah, totally not my romantic interest. And probably won't show...
And she's moving away, and I'll never see her again. Never mind.
We might see her again just because...
I know, but she is moving to Oregon.
Yeah. So, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's one of the best that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has to offer. And I really like Civil War. So this is definitely a step up for Marvel. I look forward to some of the stuff that's coming out in the future because right now it looks like Phase 4. I think that's what phase we're on right now. Looks pretty good. I just hope they can keep it up. The sad thing that I will say, even though this isn't related to Spider-Man, I'm a little sad because I'm a DC fan. And seeing what they're doing, yes, Wonder Woman didn't do it for me. And if you go onto our channel, well, you can see why. But the Marvel movies are working for me so far. And that includes films that are not part of the MCU. That includes Deadpool. That includes Logan. I kind of liked certain aspects of X-Men Apocalypse, but that was definitely the weakest of the newer X-Men films. But I'm still interested to see where that goes.
Mm-hmm. Especially with the New Mutants and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice because I was getting to a certain point where I just wanted to rule off superhero movies, and it's nice that we're actually getting things that are entertaining and have some substantive stuff in them, you know, like the whole military-industrial complex and all that kind of stuff. Like, we need movies that are relevant to the society that we live in and not just mindless entertainment.
Right. I liked Spider-Man a lot, too. Oh, I remember the other thing that really didn't work about his backstory is I know that the reason why they had like that videotaping thing at the beginning is to sort of give him an identity of being a photojournalist later. But A, it looked like crap, and B, given where he goes to school and what his curriculum is, they don't establish anything else. He's not like part of the high school paper or anything like that. He doesn't take a single artistic class. He doesn't show any interest in photography or videography in any other respect. He doesn't even own equipment for it, which you don't need to anymore. But it's not even like established as a hobby or anything. So
Is he just not going to be a photojournalist?
I think that might be where they go, honestly.
I guess he's just going to go with the Avengers later on, and we're just not.
Yeah, because right now that's just sort of what he's working towards, you know. But besides that, I really like Homecoming a lot. I do think it's one of the strongest MCU films. It checks off almost everything on my list of what makes a good comic book movie work. I like how different it is, and I like a lot of the elements of it, even though it's a little all over the place. I'm excited for Phase 4 because I think things are going to be getting even better. You know, we've got Homecoming, and then we've got Ragnarok, and we've got Black Panther, and then Infinity Wars I'm even looking forward to because that's supposed to be more in style of Guardians of the Galaxy, which I like. It's not as good as the best that the X-Men has to offer, but it is totally whooping the ass of the DCU. And I think that it's improving all the time, which is nice. It's nice that as long as they're going to put out, like, 5 movies a year, Marvel is actually making a lot of attempts to advance and get better and better. And not just be complicit, do the Transformers, I'll do the same thing over and over again, because you'll pay money to see it no matter what thing.
And it seems like the producers are doing a really good job because these are not director pieces. These are definitely producer pieces.
I think that that's less true about the Marvel movies than the DC movies. I'm saying less true. I'm not saying not true at all. I'm saying directors probably do have more artistic say in some of these movies than, say, the DCU, where I'm kind of convinced that they don't have any say in anything. I'm pretty sure that they just say action and cut, and that's about as much as they're really allowed to do.
Well, Zack Snyder had a lot of input, and they were trying to keep consistent with Zack Snyder, which is one of the reasons why I personally think that Wonder Woman failed, because it was trying to keep consistent with the visual style of Batman v Superman, which
and the character arcs, and the story plot lines, and the Snyder fingerprints are all over that movie.
Yeah, so
far more so than Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, and in the future, we will definitely, although both of us are not looking forward to it, do a podcast on Justice League.
Yeah, but right now, looking at the movie, like, this year so far, you know, Homecoming is not so far behind Logan.
No, it's definitely one of the better comic book movies. I personally like it better than Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Oh, that came out this year too, shit.
Yeah, so
I don't know, I kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 a little bit more.
As a story, I like this movie better.
As a story, yeah. But I think that Guardians of the Galaxy committed to a lot more of the emotional ride of the story.
I disagree. I actually really thought the emotional ride of this film worked. And yeah, I like Guardians of the Galaxy a lot too. So I don't know. I just think that this is the best MCU movie this year, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, here's more of how I'm putting it. Wonder Woman is like a 25%. It's an F. Spider-Man Homecoming is like a B-. And Guardians of the Galaxy is a B. Like, it's pretty close, in my eyes.
All right,
I think that Guardians of the Galaxy 2 commits a lot more. It's a lot more consistent. It has more ideas, and it's conceptually a little bit more out there. I think that it made more consistent, strong choices than Homecoming.
I think the biggest weakness of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is its villain.
Yeah, but except for Vulture, Egos is definitely one of the better Marvel villains still, and I think that they still committed to a lot of interesting ideas about him and did try to give him like actual motivation that works. I would say Egos is a character. He is more developed, he has a reason for being there, he has a reason for fighting against them, and it works.
Yeah, and going off of what you said, there are definitely more characters that I like in Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm still saying, like, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is a 75, and Homecoming is like, an 85, and Homecoming is like an 83.
Okay.
I think it's very close.
Yeah, this
and
is
then
definitely
Logan is an A+.
Yeah, this is definitely in the 80s for me. As far as what I would rate it, not the decade which this movie keeps on trying to allude to. But yeah, I really like this movie. If you listen to that and you haven't seen the movie, definitely go out and watch it. There are much worse ways to spend your money. If they're going to make stuff like this, good.
Yeah.
this doesn't really have too many elements that are not too, like, as far as kid-friendly superhero movies, this is probably the best we have had in a long time.
Yeah, this is one that I think works really well for children of all ages, but then also can work for whatever family is unfortunately dragged to take a group of 20 kids to the movie theater.
Yeah,
which was the case twice in a row. When we arrived, there was a group of 20 kids and one adult, and when we left, there was a separate group of 20 kids with one adult.
Yeah,
I felt so bad.
One of them seemed like a family. The other seemed like a summer camp thing. So
I don't really know, but yeah, I feel a little bit bad for that. But they're watching this movie. I think it works for everybody.
Yeah. All right. So let us know what you think of the amazing Friendly Neighborhood Spider.
That was a cute joke. I really liked a lot of superhero jokes. I liked Captain America school PSAs with the squeaky suit and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
That was fantastic.
I forgot to even mention that. The Captain America shit was great in this movie.
So fucking good. And that was a lot better than I'm not talking about Ant-Man being a kaiju because that part was cool, but a lot of stuff of Spider-Man interacting with Batman was really cheesy. Whereas Spider-Man...
Ant-Man?
Yeah, in Civil War.
You said Batman.
I said Ant-Man.
Okay.
But the Captain America stuff was just so on point. It was just so cheesy, but it works in the universe. 100%. Great commitment, great cheese factor. That stuff was fantastic. That was one of the best things in the movie. And they knew it.
Yeah, so let us know what you think of this movie. Let us know if there's any movie that you would like us to see cover. We're doing War soon. We already have it recorded. We're just going to release it. It's going to be a full video edit. So if you're worried that this one's an audio edit and you want to see us actually show something, we're definitely going to do that. We have a Patreon where if you like our stuff and want to support us, it'll help us go see more films. That's 90% of where the money would go to. And if we get any more money, we'll get better audio equipment and, it's helpful. All right. Thanks for listening.